Welcome back to Burnt Toast. We haven't done this in a couple weeks, but we wanted to, keep it going. So today we wanted to concentrate on non-traditional interracial couples. We got Alex here.
Boop.
I'm your host, Magno.
I want to say boop.
And Shorty. Shorty, you want to...
Yeah, I'll take the reins on this one. Actually, this comes from... The topic comes from... I was on a date with my girlfriend. Princess. Princess.
Man.
Regular podcasts don't know your name, but
regular
Burnt Toast,
podcasts, they don't know.
This is going to show who really listens.
Yeah. I got the okay from the boss, that's why.
Okay. You didn't have an okay before.
It was...
I gotta make sure, I gotta be respectful.
True.
Yeah. Can't hold the press conference, not let your PR...
Exactly. So we after we left our date, we were walking down Legacy Place. You know how it's like outdoor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we noticed like there was a couple in front of us, and they were older couple, but it was a white male, a white guy, and his girlfriend or his wife. It just was African American, and so we got to talking with me and Princess. We got to talking about. She's like, "Oh, look at it!" They seem like a nice interracial couple, and I was like, "Oh, well, like technically we're interracial as well, because I'm Hispanic and she's black, and then
a 17th
Portuguese, yeah. She's like Filipino, Portuguese, Brazilian." So I was like, "Well, technically we are," but she's like, "Oh, I never really think about it in that way, because I was like, is it because like we're both minorities, so it's not like
it's
not like with the other couple where you see like white and black." It's more of like brown and browner.
Other brown?
Yeah, caramel.
Brown and morado?
Caramel. I'm cocoa butter in the winter, rich mahogany in the summer.
Rich mahogany.
But it got me thinking like, oh, there's a lot more non-traditional interracial couple that you don't like really think about it, because you're so used to like interracial couple. It's always like white person with a black person. So
wait, what was the guy at the restaurant?
He was a white guy.
White guy, but he was. You said that they were like a little bit of an older couple.
They were older couple, yeah. And then so like it was kind of like it was an interesting topic to like something to put into perspective, because you always think interracial couple. The first thing you think about is like either like a white or black female, like a white or black.
Yeah. Now
couple.
that you bring it up. That is my definition of a interracial. I'm not even lying, because I could be dating anybody else from a different, race, and I wouldn't look at it as an interracial
couple. Yeah.
But if
also like among Latinos, like if you're just different shades,
True.
Does that count? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Would that count? Like, let's say like there's
absolutely
like a dark Colombian and a white Colombian dating.
It's interracial.
Yeah.
Interracial.
Especially in Colombia. That would be more interracial in Colombia.
Yeah.
I mean, Colombia has
Colombia's like
parts.
We have everything.
Yeah.
Because like the Caribbean is was obviously like heavily involved in like the slave
I feel like in
that,
Latin American countries though, the lighter skinned Latino people, they're all Latino Latin American countries. The lighter skinned people, they tend to act more privileged than the darker people. So I feel
it's more of the European influence that it comes down to it. Like
I find that aspect really interesting though, because then like you take those same people and you plant them in the United States, and now they're not white anymore, or at least, or they think that some of them think that they are, but then the white people come and they're like, no, you're not.
Exactly. I think we talked about this off air as well. We briefly mentioned it, how like it's crazy even within Latin America. There's like a lot of cultural differences, especially with like Central America, the Caribbean, and like South America. Just like how Central Latin America, I mean, at least especially in Colombia, it's a lot more European influence than let's say Central America, where they're a lot more the culture is a lot more based on like the roots
native,
of like Mayans and Aztecs, and like still there's like a heavy presence of it. And like some certain things are like really weird to Colombians, but at the end of the day, like you said, like if we like in the United States, like it'll be nobody would know. They just be like,
great,
you guys
great
Latino.
equalizer, yeah.
Yeah, like you guys are Latino, you guys probably you both eat tacos, and like in Colombia, like we don't eat tacos.
Nah.
Like tacos is also like going to get Mexican food. But like, it applies the same way. Like you wouldn't think a Hispanic person with an Asian person is technically an interracial couple.
It is, yeah. I never looked
never
at it.
like,
yeah, you never guess it. I mean, not guess it. You would never
You
like
don't think about it that way.
Yeah, you wouldn't look
like,
at it.
They're a nice couple.
But you know what? It makes sense why in America we would think the whole white and black is what defines interracial, because it was something that was like
well, for the longest time, I mean, those were the two large groups.
Yeah, and it was something that was like
Asians
not the common.
But Asians were in there, but they were not really ever a large group whatsoever. It was, obviously predominantly black and white people.
Yeah, but I feel like in our countries we see it happen. We see like the mixture of like different tones of skin just go out with each other. So that's an interesting point of view.
I don't know. I feel like Latinos are sometimes more racist.
They are, but I feel like they're more racist towards someone that may be dark skinned, not of their country. Even though in their own country they will oppress the darker toned people.
I think it depends. I don't think the oppression is as bad as it is in the U.S., but it's more of like
the actual oppression of it. No.
But there's certain privileges that they don't have.
Culturally,
the cultural
frowned upon,
the stereotypes,
looked down on. Yeah.
It's kind of dumb.
Like with Ecuador, it's a lot. There's not a lot of black people in Ecuador, even though you wouldn't know because their whole soccer team is black.
Yeah, I was gonna say the entire soccer. It's like
the entire soccer team. Like that's all the black people in the country.
Yeah, in El Salvador, there's not a lot of black people.
But they look down a lot upon like the native people. Like you tell somebody, like I remember one time I told my dad, I was like, "Oh yeah, no, you're Indian." He got really offended.
Your dad?
Yeah, he got super offended. He was like, "No, that's an insult. You don't say that to people." And I was like,
"But that's true."
But you are like
Indian or indigenous?
I call them an Indian. I said in Spanish, Indio, but
yeah, in Spanish that would be the literal translation.
Yeah, I mean, there's even some stuff right now because I know a couple years ago Lionel Messi got into some hot water.
Sorry, who?
Lionel Messi, the soccer player from Argentina. Anyways, he's like pretty.
I'm kidding.
He's pretty famous.
It's a joke.
He got in some hot trouble because in Latin America, the word negro is sometimes used as a form of like a endearing name. Like like my uncle is a little bit negro. My uncle's just naturally like well, not naturally, like my grandfather was a little bit dark skinned.
I want to clarify for the listeners that it's not like the same thing as like it's not.
No,
it's like
negro literally means black in Spanish.
Yeah, but I'm saying like you wouldn't say that to like one of your boys. You wouldn't be like, "Oh, mi negro." No, that you would say that like in a more romantic.
Yeah, it's more of like an endearing.
Yeah, I feel like
his friends like on his soccer team would call him like, "Hey, negro," like.
Yeah,
passed me the ball, or like, oh hey, like, are we gonna meet up later for food? Like that was just like his nickname within his friend group, and he was okay with it.
It's like there's always that one guy whose nickname is Gino.
That's facts.
Yeah, that's facts.
That's facts. Yeah, so but he got into some hot water because like some player was like, "Yo, that's like mad offensive," and then Lionel Messi was like, "That's not even at all what I was trying to get at. Like that's not." At all, like this is how that's how my culture is, and like it just sparked this whole thing.
It's difference of cultures, and I think like people gotta understand where that comes from, and just learn to like we gotta understand why they said it and how that is looked upon in their country.
I think wrapping back to Anthony Bourdain, the great bridge of cultures is food, man.
That is true.
If you can sit and you can eat with somebody, you're gonna have a hard time arguing if you're really enjoying your food.
Yeah,
that's true.
But I think understanding those cultural differences and being in an interracial couple is something that's gonna help your relationship grow. Just because if like you grow up doing one thing and that like culturally is okay, and the other person like kind of sees it like differently. Like I think we talked about this with like Asian culture. Like if you slurp your food, it means like
it's
like their food.
It's an enjoyment thing. Yeah,
it's a polite thing to do to show how much you're enjoying it.
Right, but if you did that like here, and you're like, yo, like you need to shut your mouth, bro. Like,
if I did that at home, my mom would slap me.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
so like you understanding like, oh, there's certain stuff that I can do.
Yeah.
And in this certain situation, is just gonna make the relationship.
I think
better too.
And like just randomly note about that is when you about like knowing the culture and how to speak in certain ways, depending on the scenario, like but just whether people will say black people or African American people, I think is always a real interesting when they make that distinction, you know? Yeah. Just interesting thing to notice, like what they say. It depends like who they're around, who's in the audience. Not to say that, saying like, oh, black people, like that's not bad in any way. But a lot of people, when they're around black people, won't say the word black people. They'll say African Americans.
Yeah.
I always found that like an interesting thing. Like, and I also feel like it's not necessarily a better descriptor. I know it's like the politically correct way of African Americans, but there's a lot of black people in this country that are not American
or from Africa.
They
could be from the Caribbeans.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, because even within the Latino culture, there's the Afro Latino, which is like a big thing now. Well, not a big thing now. Like
now,
it's become more into light recently.
Yeah,
it's become more acceptable. That's what it is.
Not acceptable. It's had a lot of light shown upon it recently because people are coming to terms with being both Latino and being
having
black.
African roots.
Yeah.
Because that's something that's definitely pushed down in Latino culture. Just they don't want you to be accepting of the fact that you're African.
And I think it comes down to
African descent.
It comes down to the fact that like when the countries were first being formed, obviously the European influence was a lot larger, and so like
for sure
they had better privileges. So like you always wanted to like associate yourself with that, so you could like get those privileges that you necessarily wouldn't get being in like a darker skin tone.
Yeah, it was the caste systems,
which like didn't make sense because there was like at least in Colombia there was a what's it called, the part of the caste system. There was like one that was like it's called like mixtas or whatever. Like it was literally like native Colombians and Europeans, and they were like second or like third or whatever. So like it eventually like slowly started obviously like being accepted that like, hey, we can mix this. So I guess those were the first true.
I think hybrid people are fantastic.
Yo, these terms are crazy.
Yo, I'm just joking around.
I'm just saying like that's crazy. Like that's like technically the first interracial couple or like interracial.
I remember
relationship.
A black person called me a mixed breed.
Yeah,
and I didn't know how to receive that. I mean, obviously,
mixed breed sounds negative, but I feel like if somebody was to say hybrid, I'd be like, wow, that's positive.
That's positive. But it just
people
reminded me of mixed breed.
Prius is a very popular vehicle. So.
Thank you, sir. I am very efficient, yes.
But yeah, that was definitely a good topic. This ends our Burnt Toast segment. You can find us tonight at 52 Russell Street, 8 o'clock, Davis Square in Cambridge. Come through.